A creepy story as told by a colleague. I was never afraid of the dark, not even as a child. I liked sitting in silence, listening to the rustling and all sorts of sounds behind the walls of the little house. Then I moved to the city to live with my parents, but I still wasn't afraid of the dark. And then they came. That was when I was left alone. My parents went to the dacha to help my grandparents, and they entrusted me with guarding the room. Ever since I came to the city to start school, my parents and I had been living together in a single room in a dormitory. I didn't complain, I got used to it. I didn't really talk to the neighbors. They're all adults. There aren't any kids my age. Usually, I spent these quiet days having fun, going all out. I'd spend the whole day on the computer, watching movies, listening to music. Basically, I was always in a good mood, but this time, something just didn't feel right. When my parents were leaving, I wanted to talk them out of it, to make them stay with me. But pride is such an unpleasant thing. They just say that a 15-year-old girl like me is afraid to be left alone. They left before lunchtime, and since then, my mood hasn't improved. I was haunted by a vague sense of anxiety. For the first time, I felt uneasy staying in our little room. By evening, it had somewhat subsided. I went to bed unexpectedly early, around 10 o'clock, and fell asleep too quickly. At night, I always got up to drink some water, and this night was no exception. I got up from the sofa and went to the bucket where we always kept tap water. The bucket stood opposite the door to the hallway. Calling it a hallway was purely symbolic. It was a small square room that could barely fit an old stove, a shoe cabinet, and two adults. It was right by the door to this room that I felt something was wrong. There was an unusually dense silence all around. No dogs were barking outside, no one was arguing, no cars were passing by, everything seemed to be holding its breath. And then I heard it. I will never forget that sound. It was as if someone was grinding their teeth. Any trace of sleep vanished instantly. The floorboards creaked as usual when I approached the door, but this time that sound made me afraid. Freeze. Because of this, I heard a quiet whisper coming from somewhere far away. Open up for us. I slightly opened the door to the hallway, but there was no one there, and the whisper still didn't stop. It was coming from the stairwell, but strangely there was no echo. Fear gripped my heart with sticky tentacles, keeping me frozen in place. I had the urge to rush back into my room, crawl under the blanket, and just sit there in silence, hoping that whoever was out there would leave, disappear, vanish. But the sounds didn't stop. The grinding of teeth, a quiet whisper. And then, joining all of this, came a sound like claws scraping against metal. Some kind of persistent screeching. The iron door was only on the entrance side, yet the screeching wouldn't stop. And the whisper, open up, open for us, come with us. You like to go for walks, don't you? Come with us, open up. I don't know where I found the courage to unlock and push open the door. There was no one in the hallway. The voices fell silent for a moment, and then the laughter scared me even more than their words. It felt like it wasn't just one, but dozens of creatures laughing. Their laughter was ringing, echoing through the air. It bounced off the walls, amplifying my fear. For a while, the laughter subsided. Open up for us, come with us, we won't hurt you, we want to be friends. The laughter resumed, sounding much more malicious and gleeful than before. In a kind of stupor, I approached the iron door of the section and looked through the peephole, only to immediately recoil in horror. It was dark in the hallway, but I could still make out icy blue glowing eyes and long claws reflecting the moonlight from the window. The laughter became even more malicious. The door creaked under their claws. Open up for us, come on, we won't hurt you. Chills ran down my spine. Suddenly I realized how cold I was. It was cold in the hallway, almost like winter. I quickly ran into my room, hugging my shoulders with my arms. The lock wouldn't budge for a long time, but after a few minutes, I finally managed to close it. The laughter behind the door faded, replaced once again by the grinding of teeth, and it was anything but cheerful. Open up for us. It sounded more like a shriek. There was no malice in it, no. It was filled with rage, a rage at such a close prey slipping away. I crawled under the blanket, covering myself completely, and pressed myself into the farthest corner of the bed. I was shaking. I could hear them going wild. I could hear the grinding of their teeth outside the door. I heard them scratching at the door. I heard their curses and calls. I felt awful, really awful. Tears streamed from my eyes, but I cried silently. I was afraid they would hear me. All I wanted right then was to fall asleep so I wouldn't hear them, so that when I woke up in the morning, I would realize it had all just been a dream. A terrifying dream that made me tremble, but still just a dream. The last thing I heard before I lost consciousness was a vicious grinding sound and a promise, we will come again. I woke up to noise in the dormitory. At first I hoped it was just a burst pipe or something like that, but the words I overheard made my blood run cold. Quickly throwing on my robe, I went out to the landing, where most of the people were gathered. Looking at our door, it became clear what had attracted them. There were rather deep, long scratches on the black iron door. Quite a lot of time has passed since then. I graduated from school, got into university in another city, and now I live alone. I had already started to forget about that incident. Only the occasional nightmare reminded me of it. Someday I would have completely forgotten about it if I hadn't once heard that nasty grinding of teeth and